I call the meeting to order at 6:05. In attendance, Rachel Katz, Caitlin Von Schmidt, Christy Moore, Ellie Mandel. Welcome, Ellie. Steve Hussey and Steve Goldshire, as well as guests Gretchen Green and MJ Adams. Let's start with some introductions, since we have new people here and some people we haven't seen in a while. I'll go first. Rachel Katz, chair of this committee, as well as the owner of the Greenfield Gallery and the sculptor of the bees that you see around town. I'll just go call people in the order you're on my screen. Caitlin.
Hi, I am Caitlin Von Schmidt, and I am currently the admin assistant in the mayor's office for the city of Greenfield. And I used to work at the Greenfield Business Association. And yeah, that's good. That's enough.
Cool. MJ.
MJ Adams, Director of Community and Economic Development for the fine city of Greenfield.
Excellent. And Christy.
Hi, I'm Christy Moore, the Recreation Director for the City of Greenfield, and an advocate of public art. Was one of the first founders of our local public art volunteer group and started all the parking meters and the paint boxes and the murals. So heavily involved with art downtown.
Fantastic. And new member, Ellie.
Yes, I'm Ellie Mandel. Can people hear me all right?
Yep.
Excellent.
That's good.
Yeah, so new member, very, very excited about being a member of the committee and working with all of you.
Wonderful. Thank you. See you again.
I'm sorry I missed that, Rachel.
Thank you, Ellie, and welcome aboard. And next on my screen is Gretchen. Good to see you again.
Oh, thank you. Hello. Yes. So I'm Gretchen Green. I moved to Greenfield about just 2 years ago now. I am retired from finance at Ford Motor Company, and I am just looking to get more involved in the community.
Excellent. Wonderful. And Steve Hussey, welcome back after a bit of an absence.
Yeah, good to be back. I'm Steve Hussey. I'm currently president of the Board of Art Space, a retired teacher and enjoying my new retirement, and busy with a lot of other things too. But this is first on my menu.
Wonderful. Thank you. And last but not least, Steve Goldshire.
Hi, I'm Dr. Stephen Goldshire, and I'm a periodontist here in Greenfield for the past 35 years. And about 5-6 years ago, I purchased the downtown properties, which are now known as Hawks and Reed Performing Arts Center, and the Pushkin building. And I'm very interested in the continuation of arts and culture in downtown Greenfield, the cultural district. And we run the Performing Arts Center and had been until COVID hit. So we're in the process of trying to get things started up again, and very hopeful that we'll get back to where we were, because we see those buildings and the Performing Arts Center as being paramount to the future of Greenfield.
Wonderful. Thank you, Steve. I noticed you started scheduling some events in the last couple of weeks, so congratulations on the beginnings of a comeback.
Yeah.
First order of business, as with all our meetings, would be to approve minutes from the July meeting. And one moment, please. I just got a text from Linda that she needs the link to the meeting. So let me fire that off for her real quick, and then we will continue forward. And there we go.
People should know it's always on the town calendar.
Mm-hmm.
I think she must have forgot about it.
She was on another Zoom, she says.
Yeah, she said she just got out, so she'll be joining us shortly. I did not see any emails about corrections to last month's minutes, so I assume they are okay as written. Did we distribute minutes from last month, actually, come to think of it?
Did I never send them?
I'm not sure. I didn't attach them to the email, so that could just be me failing to.
All right, I'll have to. I'm sorry. I'll have to double check.
All right, I'm going to recalendar approval of the minutes for next month, since I'm not sure we've all actually read them, which makes a vote on it somewhat disingenuous. So we'll we'll make a note in the minutes that approval of July's meeting minutes will actually be pushed to the October meeting. Then next on our agenda, we've got a couple of status updates. First on the renewal process, which I think I'm just going to give you. Welcome, Linda. Linda joined us at 6:10.
Another Zoom. Sorry about that.
No worries. I'm glad you were able to join us. Let me pause where I was and do just a couple of quick introductions. Linda, I think you know Ellie, but why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for the record here?
Hi, Ellie. I'm Linda McInerney, and I'm so grateful to have you here among us. And sorry to be late.
We were, Linda, just realizing that we may not have sent the meeting minutes around from the last meeting, so we're actually going to push back the approval of the July minutes until the October meeting. And we were getting on to the status updates. First of those is the Cultural District renewal. We were approved. Congratulations. We now enter our second 5-year period of being a cultural district. We did get through cleanup of some discrepancy between the written description of the borders of the district and the drawn map of the borders of the district. Did we also? Yeah, MJ, please elaborate on that. If you
No,
would.
we expanded the boundaries, and if people haven't seen the map already, we're actually asking Eric to update it and put it on the town layer. So, and it was largely to scoop down and to include the Powers, the Museum of Industrial Heritage,
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
that area.
That's wonderful. Could you maybe send the new map around in an email once that comes out?
Absolutely.
That'd be great. Thank you. And good work for everyone on getting that through, from our mayor to our city council and right on down to us. Next status update, the final report from last year's grants. I don't think there's much to say there other than that it is filed, and I haven't heard any complaints about it. MJ, it's all good as far as you know?
There were some corrections I think we needed to make. There was the question about some in-kind contributions that I didn't capture. So I wanted to hear that.
Yeah, I know I worked on that, and Caitlin worked on it, and Linda worked on it, and none of us really knew what some of those questions were asking. You know, so the and this is a great time to try to clear it up. In-kind donations was a perfect example. B-Fest got in-kind donations for their festival, which we also used grant money on, but the in-kind donation was to the B-Fest committee, not to the cultural district.
Okay.
And the same was kind of true of all of those. So it asked about local cultural council money, and certainly some amount of the local cultural council grants must have been in the cultural district, but none of them were to the cultural district administration. So my final feeling on that was that none of those should be included because the grant wasn't given to the cultural district administrative committee, us. But I don't know if that's the correct interpretation. Did Luis have any thoughts on that?
I've had no feedback from the state. I'm assuming that they just accepted our annual report as submitted. So unless you guys feel like there's a need to sort of clarify or make corrections for the record, I'm happy for us to just accept it as is and pay attention so that next year when we have to answer the questions, we know the answers before the report is due.
Excellent. Thank you. I agree. I think we can just sit tight, and if we hear something, we'll deal with it. And if not, we'll assume it's good. But next year, hopefully we'll get a look at it early enough to ask those questions and get answers before the deadline. Caitlin, did you have a?
I was just, it would be nice if we could get from Luis an idea of what is counted as in kind, because it'd be a lot easier if we kept track of it kind of as we go along. Like, I know we were thinking maybe the tons of hours you put into the bees might have counted as in kind. So
Yeah, me and many others, and that's
Right.
the question is, you know, do
Right.
those in-kind donations count if they're towards a project that the district participated in, even though they weren't in kind
Right.
to the
The
district itself?
complete project, yeah.
Yeah. Linda?
Just to give you guys some background, I met with Michael Bobbitt, who is the new executive director of the Massachusetts Cultural Council. He just got brought in, and he was saying that he's making huge changes. This whole matching grant thing, and all of the in-kind stuff, and all of these stipulations, like you can only get money if. He's working very hard to wipe all that out. I would not worry about any of it. They're not going to be looking for it. It's an archaic dinosaur of a model that they are seeking to wipe out. So don't spend any energy on this. They're not looking for it.
Good.
Oh,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you, Linda.
Thank you for that update. I'm all for anytime we can smooth out these processes and reduce the paperwork for sure. Oh, do we have someone joined us by phone?
Yes,
Please introduce yourself.
this is Jeremy Golcher.
Hi, Jeremy. Thank you for joining us.
No problem.
We have with us a new member, Ellie Mandel, as well as guests, Gretchen and I'm so sorry, we had another guest on here somewhere. Oh, MJ, of course, is with us. Everybody else are committee members, and I'm pretty sure you know everybody. For the benefit of people who don't know, Jeremy works with Stephen Golcher on the arts block, and I think is the main boots on the ground there, if I have that about right.
No, you
Let me
actually,
re-clarify.
Co-work, I mean.
Jeremy runs a co-work space called
Ah.
Green Space
Okay.
at Oxon Reed Performing Arts Center. But
Gotcha.
Right.
yeah, he's Ben, my other son, is the person who is primarily involved with running the Oxon Reed Performing Arts Center. Jeremy and his partner Jeff are pretty involved with their co-work space and other various projects.
Wonderful.
Is
Thanks
that-
for the clarification.
Is that accurate, Jer?
Yeah, I'm sorry I can't get on Zoom. I'm trying to get the WebEx app up on my phone, but it won't download correctly for some reason. But that is correct. My partner Jeff and I now run, as of the last month, the only co-work space in Greenfield. We've been around for about 4 or 5 years. We have 2 locations right on Main Street. And I did help develop the Oxon Reed Performing Arts Center as well.
Great. Wonderful to have so much participation in the meeting today. Jeremy, just, I can't see you obviously, so, if you're trying to be recognized, say something so we know.
Sure, I'm very handsome. Just
No question about that. That's a well-known fact in town here. If it's okay with the committee, I'm going to change up the order of the agenda just a little bit. I'm going to save our big agenda item for last so that we don't have to take care of anything else once we're done with it. We do usually reserve a short open segment for any kind of community announcements or feedback. I'm going to start with one, and then I'll see if anybody else has anything they need to announce. A quick bit of news we have so far. It looks like 3 more bees are going to be added to the hive. One will be added sometime late fall or in the winter near Greenfield Savings Bank, and 2 more so far will be added in the spring, including one that is going to be movie themed apparently. So Isaac Mass at the theater decided to sponsor one. So big shout out to him. And then in committee news, I realized that I've been sitting as chair a long time and we haven't had an election. So I would love to step back from chair and become a regular member for a time if anybody else is interested in taking that position for a while. If there is anybody who knows they're interested now, we can take that vote tonight. Otherwise, I'll just leave it out there to think about, and maybe we'll try to hold that vote next month. So that's what I had. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to throw out for that section?
Just a question, Rach, is it your desire to step back or from chair? Is that what you would like to do?
I would like to, at least for a time. I'd be willing to consider, like a temporary if somebody just wants to do 6 months, but I would love a break. I'm pretty buried in projects right now, and I still want to be part of the committee. Obviously, this work is very important, but if I could pull back from the chair responsibilities, that would help me a little.
Well, why don't we take a moment to talk about that and see if there's anybody who wants to throw their hat in the ring and what their feelings are.
Yeah.
Can't.
You can't,
I've been told I shouldn't. I shouldn't be the chair. So
yeah, because of your government.
yeah,
You got a government job.
get a government job.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably
Is
a
there
reason.
anybody who would be open to taking the chair? Okay, you know what? I'll do it, Rach, if you want. How about I'll do it for you for 6 months if no one else will do it, and then you can have a little break, hon. Does that sound good?
Yeah, well, maybe we can co-chair or something. Let's since
Okay.
we're short a couple of members tonight,
That's
maybe
true. We still have other voices.
yeah, let me put it out in an email after the meeting so those who weren't here can get it, and then we'll have a brief discussion and vote if necessary at the next meeting.
Okay. But just so
Great.
you know, I definitely want you to be able to have your break. You deserve it. It's been an unbelievable couple of years, and you know, not that I think I'm the best for the job, but I'm happy to throw my hat in if it allows you to step away for a bit.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, and you've done amazing work. So kudos for that.
Absolutely,
So,
incredible work.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank
Could,
you.
could
Stephen?
you elaborate a little bit? It's hard from my perspective to get a sense of what it involves being the chair. I mean, we have these meetings and we have these discussions, but behind the scenes, I'm sure there's a lot of work that goes on. Are you having meetings outside of these types of meetings, and what types
I
of
wouldn't say
responsibilities?
meeting. I wouldn't say meetings exactly. Because
Okay.
we're staying compliant with open meeting law in terms of not actually doing decision making and having ex parte meetings. The main jobs of the chair, really the one assigned job of the chair, is scheduling the meetings and making sure everybody comes. In practical terms, it's also the volunteer of last resort, if you will. So when things like the annual report need to be done, any committee member could volunteer, and if none do, it ends up kind of being the chair's job. So I've spent some time in the background working on grant applications and reports and the renewal and that type of thing. And to be clear, not alone. MJ has put in quite a bit. Caitlin is always there on the volunteering. Linda also is always very regular on the volunteering. So I've had good support, but I would describe those as working sessions on things that were already delegated by the committee, rather than any sort of generalized meeting where we might be making decisions.
Well, the reason I asked that question is because we've had a couple incidents where there was work to be done, and I think people have volunteered, and then there was either mentioned that it had already been taken care of, and I'd say it might be nice to delegate more or share more with the members to be involved in some of these processes. I'm speaking in particular about the renewal of the application for the Cultural Council to be renewed, I guess, with the state level. Which was sent to us. We all have a copy of that now. I think we could share the work. It would, many hands make a lighter load. And when I know a couple times when the whole bee installation process was occurring, you required volunteers, had asked for volunteers. But I think, in the end, a couple things happened and people did that, in a expeditious way. And if you feel that you need more help, I'd say, feel free to reach out to the members. I mean, I'm hesitant to throw my hand in to be a chair because I don't know that I have the time, but I would certainly be willing to participate a lot more in the process.
Great. Thank you for the willingness to help. I most certainly, I feel like I have always tried to get committee involvement before resorting to doing it myself, but I will redouble my efforts to make sure that that's the case. I certainly have no martyr complex or anything going on like that. Not trying to hold on to anything. So, when the asks go around, raise your hand if you want to be in. No one's excluded. Great. And then we're going to take our last minor agenda item before we jump into the big one. MJ, you had something you want to add here? Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. I just wanted to share with everyone, you've probably seen in the paper or participated in some way in the local rapid recovery grant program that we've been going through. Clearly that's focused on the downtown, which is overlaid with our cultural district. I'm presenting to City Council this Wednesday evening, tomorrow night. And on Thursday evening, we're having additional feedback. We've gotten a lot of feedback about different elements of the project, the projects that we put out there. Always willing to hear that. And I also wanted you to know that we've been invited to put in funding requests. So we're trying to make a final list of that. Not a lot of money, but some sort of expeditious money that will get to us fairly quickly to take care of some of the things. But some of the things that we're looking to fund quickly would be some additional features in the downtown, a business directory and a kiosk, some wayfinding. And also one of the things that we haven't finalized the list, but one of the things I'm asking for is some additional resources to help figure out what this management entity that can pull together the cultural district, GBA, Progress Partnership, and Rec Department, and all the good folks who try to make a positive, upbeat impact in the downtown. So that will probably be included in the funding request, but I'm not really sure what that looks like in its entirety yet. But I don't want it to be a surprise to you guys.
Great.
I guess this is something we could talk about later. I'm just curious, like when you say a funding request, is that for a position? Is that for a study to see how it would work? What would the money go towards?
Not exactly sure. I'm meeting with Roxanne tomorrow to
Okay.
finalize that conversation. So,
Okay.
Great.
so some sort of additional resources, because it feels like this area has been under-resourced for the city. And clearly, I mean, we hear from more corners that there needs to be a little more focus and coordination and support for this.
Mhm.
Not sure what that will look like exactly just yet.
Great.
Well, the
I
great
look,
news is there are a lot of local models that do it well. So
Mhm.
there's lots to look to learn how to do it.
I think that can be probably our main agenda item for the October meeting once we're past this application process. So I'm looking forward to talking about that, and in particular, the management entity aspect of it. I think just to bring board members up to speed on some theoretical discussions that have been happening, occasionally in the background is the cultural district does not have to be run as it is with an executive committee out of the mayor's office. It's perfectly acceptable for the city to reach agreement with a private nonprofit entity as but one possibility to manage the cultural district and distribute the funds. And there's an attractiveness there because municipal accounting is subject to audit requirements that are vastly different from and more difficult than what a nonprofit would have to do. And that unfortunately trickles down to making it very challenging for artists to work with the cultural district on these projects, where an external entity would be able to distribute funds much more quickly without requiring artists to have invoices for every paintbrush they used on the project and that type of thing. And in the interest of full disclosure, MJ and I have gone round on this more than once.
Yes, and
Having
I'm
conversations.
as anxious as Rachel is to have some other process.
Yeah.
So we're on a page. MJ and the city accountant and several other people have finally impressed upon me that there's nothing the city can do because they have these audit requirements that are placed on them by the state. But so we're both eager to streamline that, and that I think again will be a good focus for the October meeting. I see Caitlin and then Gretchen.
I think we're going to want to, now that the MCC is going more in the direction of paying up front, not reimbursement, I think this is going to have to be a conversation too with the accountant about how those two things, which apparently are at loggerheads, might work together, at least until we can figure out how to get a fiscal agent. Although maybe we can really push that forward to the front of the queue.
Yeah, again, I want to save the detailed discussion of this for October, just because we do have a big item on the agenda today, but there's definitely some room to work there and some positive looking possibilities. I'm sorry, Gretchen, you
Yeah,
were.
I know we're going to talk about this more later, but I just want to throw out, having a finance background, that I know that auditing is really cumbersome and really does, add a lot of bureaucracy, but it is so important. And it's important to keep track of the funds. And it's also just important for a PR perspective, right? If we can easily show people what we've been spending the money on and, kind of an audit trail, it just gives people a lot more confidence in us. So I do understand what a paperwork hassle it is, but I just want to say that bypassing any of the auditing always makes me really nervous.
Hang tight, Caitlin. If you don't mind, let
Sure.
me address this, and then if I don't finish it, you
Okay,
can
you
add
got
to
it.
Gretchen, I agree 100%, and I think everybody in the room will. That it's not that we're trying to hide anything that we're doing. The disclosure of where the grants go absolutely should be public, whether it's through a different fiscal agent or not. The difference and the challenge comes in is that municipal governance and the audit structure that is built for it by the state is not really meant for dealing with this particular kind of expenditure. So the first challenge is that the city really can't distribute all the funds for the grant up front. They need to distribute a portion up front, and even that's a stretch. They really prefer to pay net 30 after the job is completed. And artists, when they're buying a whole bunch of materials, they're not like a construction contractor who's got other income from other jobs and a big reservoir of money in the bank. Starving artists really struggle to front the $5,000 that they are getting in a grant in order to do the project, only to be paid back later. And as one example that I can attest to personally, when I started the B project, it was just that. It was a $5,000 grant, which I had to put up front, and I didn't have in cash. I literally had to put the whole project on a credit card, and I had used almost the entire $5,000 for materials, not my own labor.
Right.
So I actually racked up $400 in interest by the time I got paid back by the city, because I had to front that cash. And so in moving to a fiscal agent, you would still be able to see where the grant money went, but a fiscal agent wouldn't have those state accounting or state audit requirements that make that post facto payment required. Another example is not the simple tracking of what projects were funded, but the city, again, because of those same audit requirements, has to track multiple levels. So if the city hires a contractor to do road work, and the road work contractor subcontracts some portion of that to another contractor, then they're going to get invoices from the subcontractor, which need to be submitted to the city as proof, as part of their documentation package supporting the invoice. And when we try to apply that process to an artist, it essentially means that artists have to be tracking receipts for nails and 2x4s and paint. And that's just not normally the way artists work, and not normally the way grants to artists work. So it's difficult to implement. So there are some challenges. And again, we can go into this at much greater length in October, but I think there is a balance between maintaining transparency without making the process burdensome on both the city as well as the artists. So
Yeah, well, and I can't agree. I mean, things need to be efficient and effective, right?
absolutely.
If it makes the process so inefficient that you can't do it, then you're defeating your purpose. But it's also really important that we can go back to the taxpayers or whoever the grant is coming from and say, hey, we can guarantee that this money was spent effectively and honestly. So
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm hoping you'll be able to join us in October so you can continue to give us more of this guidance. It's important to have all the perspectives on it. And I know you had mentioned you had a finance background, so
Yeah,
it'd be good to have you in that conversation.
great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. The last minor agenda item before we get to our main feature for the evening is next meeting. I just trying to remember to always set the date for the next meeting before we leave. So if everybody could pull up your calendars, I'd like to target something in the second or third week of October, I think would probably be good. So potentially Tuesday the 19th, maybe around the same time.
Sure.
Getting some nods. Any conflicts for anybody? It's good for Ellie. Caitlin, MJ, Christy still looking. Linda, you're good? Excellent.
Good.
And All right. I think, whoops, Steve Hussey stepped away, perhaps to get his calendar. Steve G, does that the 19th at 6 work for you?
Yep, that
Okay,
looks good. It's okay.
great. Steve Hussey, Tuesday the
Tuesday, the
19th
19th?
of October?
That sounds good to me.
Okay, seems like that's good for everybody. So we will set that for our next meeting, Tuesday the 19th, 6 p.m. Unless anybody objects, I'm going to keep us on WebEx for now. I think, you know, with the Delta numbers where they are, I think we're best being cautious. And to be frank about it, we've all gotten pretty used to WebEx at this point, and it's kind of convenient not having to leave the house to go to a meeting. So
It is.
fantastic. On to our main agenda item, which is the all-important setting our grant priorities. We have been told we're going to have $7,500 to distribute. We're still awaiting final confirmation and guidelines on how that the grant needs to be structured, but I think it's safe to assume similar guidelines to previous years, which is to say that it needs to be distributed for projects within the cultural district, and the projects typically need to be completed by like June or so in order to, because that's where the fiscal year runs. So I guess let's start with just putting ideas on the table. So we'll do a brief round of introducing project ideas that people brought, and then we'll open up some conversation and see what we want to do. So I know I've heard from Linda and Christy about some ideas. Let's just have you guys reintroduce what you're thinking. So Linda, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'm happy to go first if that's good. So I had two projects that had sort of been stalled for whatever reason. One of them, the first one was a lighting project that was a wayfinding project that in September of 2018, I had a request from the former mayor, Bill Martin. I had a meeting with MJ and Bill Martin about a wayfinding project underneath the Bank Row railroad bridge, because it's creepy, it's weird, it's, you know, it's dark, it's rapey, it's horrible. And and I had this idea just because of my theatrical background that lighting would be an amazing thing, and that there are ways that you can create wayfinding through light. If you just imagine pouring light through a stencil against a stone wall, you can be shown where, you know, restaurants and venues are, kind of a thing. And then when I talked to my lighting designer, whose name is Matthew Cowan, who runs Downright Productions out of Florence, he suggested some LED changeable lights that essentially the rope lighting that you know from like just Walmart and stuff. There's a more sophisticated version of that that's out there, and you can change colors. I mean, we could do rainbows, we could do Halloween colors and all that kind of thing. So I put that all together in 2018, and I've shared with everybody the estimate of that. Now, of course, prices will have gone up. Matthew thought about 10%. So that would end up being like maybe a $14,000-15,000 project, which would mean there would be more fundraising to do, but not very much, and it would have a huge impact. It would be a very cheerful way to come into town. So that's one. Number two was a project that that I had pretty far underway with a really wonderful artist who whose health got in her way to carry it out, which was in the back of the Conti building. Karen Conti was very excited to have a giant mural on the back of the Conti building, which those of you who don't know the building, it is the building that faces Energy Park, the big office supply. They do secondhand like desks and chairs and stuff like that. And it's right next to Mesa Verde, but the back wall of it, if you've never noticed it, is just this magnificent, gigantic wall. So I had figured out contract, I had figured out pricing, I had figured out materials and all that good stuff. And then when she became ill, it didn't happen, and that was that. But that's another one. I mean, that would be a great way to sort of brand the city to the Amtrak trains coming into town, be beautiful when everybody's going to concerts at Energy Park. So there are two of my failed projects that I offer again to you all.
Excellent. And what was the
12,000?
What was the approximate total for the
Oh,
mural?
$7,500, like right on the money. Like
Okay,
that was
seven.
like right on the money. It would be $5,000 for the artist and about $2,500. And I also would partner with Mark Zacchio, who's just a really good friend, who would do all the scaffolding and all that stuff. He would just do that for free. He's awesome.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Always nice to get some donations to help. Thank you for two good ideas on the table. I have some clarifying questions, but I'd like to just introduce all the ideas first and then come back around for a round of discussion.
Excellent.
Christy, I know you had Winter Carnival on the list of possible grant targets.
Yeah, so sorry I have a train going by. Hopefully you guys can hear me and not hear the train. But we this year is going to be our 100th anniversary of Greenfield Winter Carnival. I've been working with Summit Ice to try and get a what I really want to do. I know it's a dream, but in the 1930s there was a giant poet seat tower that was on the city common. Back then we had Highland Pond that completely froze. We didn't have the climate issues that we have today. And they were able to actually manually carve out the ice blocks to build that giant castle. So the cost was really minimal to the city. When we estimated the cost for that at the same size, it was over $20,000 to build that in today's time, with Summit creating all those ice blocks. So we've tossed around a few smaller ideas. We're still trying to finalize a number. So knowing that our meeting was coming, what we did was put together, similar to last year, with an expansion of the live ice carving downtown. And we anticipate having 10, assuming COVID is cooperating again this year. We lost some out-of-state carvers. Sorry, can you hear that? It's really ear piercing. Yeah. I'm sorry. Let me mute a second. Hold on. There it goes. That's what happens when we live in New England, right? All these trains. So the total cost, as you guys saw in my proposal, is $4,100. I believe it's just $7,500 that Rachel said that we have to divide up amongst the projects that were submitted. But any amount that we're able to use is greatly appreciated, because this whole event is put on by donations and sponsors through the local businesses. And we all know that asking for money at this time, people are still recovering from the pandemic, so there's not as much money available from businesses. So any support would be appreciated, but we're excited. 100 years is quite a celebration, so we want to get as much as we can downtown.
Absolutely. So just for my notes, can I put down some amount between 500 and 4,000 to be decided by the committee?
Yeah, that's what I figured we would do, similar to last year.
Okay, just wanted to, clarify what the ask was, so I can take some notes. Yep. Excellent. Three good sounding ideas so far. Steve Hussey, I know you had mentioned one in an email, but there was a question of whether the time could work.
Yeah, no, the time, no, it would be a late fall. So, and I actually, there was an angel, we had to cancel it for this fall, but there was an angel who was going to fund it anyway. So let's leave the money out for these other projects.
Excellent. Great. At this point, I'll just throw the question out. Does anybody have any other ideas that we haven't heard about yet?
Well, I have a couple of things that I can mention. Mark Zacchio had actually approached us. His son apparently is involved in some type of a project through Deerfield Academy to do murals. Do you know, Linda?
I do. It's a little bit different. Do you want me to explain it?
Okay.
So Gabe Zacchio, he is at Deerfield Academy. He's a rising senior, and he and his father are working together on a mural project that actually I had started with Mark about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And but he's following through with it with his son. His son is raising money. They're utilizing Egg Tooth Productions, which is my theater company, as a fiscal agent, because we're a not-for-profit. They've already done 3 murals, and they are seeking to do murals throughout the city of Greenfield. And as a matter of fact, I would be working with them on the big Conti building if you all decide that that's what you want to do. So it's not through Deerfield Academy, Steve. It's just he happens to be going to Deerfield Academy. But it's Gabe and Mark. And again, Mark is using his infrastructure that he has, like scaffolding and cherry pickers and that kind of thing, and also access to contractor prices on paint and that kind of thing, and using his people to prep and prime walls. So yeah, so that's what he's doing, and he has the plan to do as many murals as he can throughout the downtown of Greenfield.
Yeah,
Nice.
just to clarify, I knew it wasn't through Deerfield Academy, but I think as a student, he may be doing some type of like an externship or getting some kind of credit for this project. But at any rate, they had approached us to do a mural on the outside of Hawks and Reed.
Yeah.
And it's very similar, I think, to what you're describing. So I think that's an option. I would want to see the artwork and get a better sense of what it might look like before committing to it. But I would think that it would be essentially similar to what you just described. So that was one thing that I was aware of. The other project is one that's sort of already ongoing. It started. Robert Markey is doing a mosaic project in the alleyway at the Pushkin, and it's he's involved with the jail and the recovery project. And I know that they would like to have more funding if it's available. They have multiple volunteers that come and do the mosaics. This is actually the second year. It started last year, and they're continuing to work on it. And I would think that the budget for that would be whatever the could be put forth, but somewhere in maybe in the range of 2,500 to 5,000. You're essentially trying to reimburse for some of the materials and the artists that are working with the volunteers. So those are two projects that I'm aware of that might be considered for funding.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. Any other?
Can I put something forward?
Absolutely. Go for it.
So I specifically wanted to call in to make a pitch on behalf of the Greenfield Skate Park Initiative. As some of you may know, they just received a significant grant. I believe it was, is it 40 grand or 400 grand? MJ?
Christy, this is
It
Christy.
is. Yes, I had raised my hand, but Rachel didn't recognize me earlier. No offense, Rachel, it's fine. We had lots of people that were talking. But that is correct. The governor just announced today that I'm very proud to announce, and the press release will be out soon, the recipient of the park grant of $400,000, Jeremy, towards the skate park. So downtown Greenfield by 2023 will also have a skate park within our Crossroads Cultural District.
What's the location, Christy?
Chapman Davis Street lot.
Cool.
Is that within the cultural district?
It is now.
Oh, wonderful. Nice job on growing those borders.
Damn.
And
Caitlin and I met a great deal of time trying to lay out the different borders. So we wanted to make sure that was included.
Well, so Jeremy, what the hell? You got 400 grand. You're asking more from us. What the hell?
I'm going to jump in on this and say I don't think we're going to be anywhere near construction-wise any point to be doing anything for the skate park at this time. Wouldn't you say, Christy?
That is true. The first 6 months is design. I'm not sure what Jeremy was thinking, but that could be some sort of, like, our plan is to have a graffiti wall, something like that we could apply again for next year.
Yeah, that's what time-wise, that's what it sounds like, because the work does have to be completed.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble just finishing my thoughts right now. I feel like I just got jumped on by 4 different people. I'm sorry. It's wonderful news. I definitely did have a specific idea where that money could go and how it could potentially be used to continue the efforts that are currently surrounding the potential site for the skate park. I also know there's supposed to be a $350 matching grant from the city, I believe, as well. So all of this money is going to be wonderful, but it is such an expensive project. And looking at what has currently happened in our sister town over in Turner's with Jess's work, creating the Unity mural, Nova and Santos collaborative efforts to kind of decorate the surrounding area around the skate park has really just continued to increase the cultural impact that skate park is having for that community. I mean, it's truly amazing what they are doing there every single weekend. And we could right now lay the groundwork for similar events, for a similar culture. We could create more friendly parking spaces for increased food stalls, more art hubs that we could use the talent that is on this board currently to attract and really work in tandem with the group that's been pursuing this for about 10 plus years now to bring back the skate park to Greenfield. I think every little bit counts. I wouldn't say, what the hell am I asking for? Money. Every bit. It's super important and would mean a lot to the silent majority that wants it to happen, to see the cultural committee step up and support this in a huge way.
Great. Thank you for that, Jeremy. And my apologies for the failed facilitation. It's a little bit of an extra challenge when we don't have video on some members. And let me just throw out a friendly good meeting reminder. Even though we are few and friendly, let's try to hold to regular order and wait to be recognized before speaking. It does make things run more smoothly. Thank you for your impassioned plea there, Jeremy. You make a good case. I do wonder about the timing and the lack of specifics in the proposal, but we have it in the mix. So any other suggestions to be added to the bundle before we move on to clarifying questions and then some debate?
I guess I'll put forth one other idea. I was a little hesitant to do this, but it's something for the committee to consider. It's apparently through the Mass Cultural Council. They have come up with a device that was developed, and if anybody knows about this, feel free to add to this, that you attach to a tree, and it picks up on the dynamic nature of trees, and they actually are creating sounds. So you connect this device to a tree, and then it's amplified, and it's at a very specific frequency. And then, and the Mass Cultural Council did this at the library in Boston. Then you have musicians performing with this frequency that the tree is emanating. And so it's a pretty cool project. And I know we have trees in Court Square, and we could conceivably create a project like that people would participate in. It's kind of a cool idea.
Conceptually, very cool. Maybe sounds like we may not have the specifics to really debate it now, in terms of who would do it, what the budget would be. We kind of need that. Unfortunately, we don't have a long cycle here. We have to put in this grant application between this meeting and the next one. So a few little details to flesh out is one thing, but a conceptual idea may not really be close enough to put in the mix yet.
Well, my understanding is that the device is provided by the Mass Cultural Council, and then with funding, we could hire musicians to come and perform. And this would be, multiple events, not just one particular event. I can provide more information if it's of interest.
Okay, great. Caitlin? You're muted. You're muted, Caitlin.
I'm going to have to leave about 7:15, just FYI.
Okay, we'll make sure the recording gets to you.
Okay, thanks.
And we'll make sure we catch everything you want to say before you go. All right. I'm going to ask a few clarifying questions that I think will help me at least understand the projects that we're talking about.
Rachel?
Yes, Jeremy.
I just have a clarifying question as a guest, as my first time coming into one of these meetings. So I heard about this through the upcoming meeting through the GBA, and I want to know how, as a guest, we can prepare for these opportunities better. I'm more than happy to provide a detailed spreadsheet within 24 hours if necessary to back up the different areas that I'd like to point out for the possible grant usage. But I wasn't aware that, you know, we had to have that prepared. So how can I prepare further in the future and notify other people if they want to chime into these meetings?
So the meeting dates and agenda are posted on the city website as they are for all municipal committees. We typically meet once a month, and you can just check the city calendar to find the meeting. If you see something on the agenda, such as set grant priorities for upcoming cycle, agenda item 5 on this agenda, that, you know, appeals to you, that you're interested in, to get the additional information you would just need to reach out to the committee by the contact information
Okay, thank you.
on the municipal site. And that would be the same for anybody who wanted to be. MJ, you wanted to add to that?
Only in that people should know that this is an annual funding round that we get. Historically, I mean, the last couple of years we've got from 7,500, but usually around this time of the year, every year, we're making some decisions about how we're going to allocate the cultural district funds. So Jeremy, you know, next September, this will be another. This is a recurring conversation now that we're a 5+ year established cultural district. And my sense is that everything I've read is that my sense is that they're looking to provide more funding resources to cultural districts because they've seen it as a real home run in terms of communities. So.
Okay, sorry, I might have lost you for a second, but thank you very much. I understand. Thank you.
Cool. Steve Gulcher, yes.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to go back to this because I just realized I had more information about this project. It's called the Hidden Life Radio. And it's a live stream of music generated from tree biodata, and it was done in Cambridge, Mass. It was supported by a grant from the Cambridge Arts local agency and the Mass Cultural Council. And it's called Listen to the Trees. And I don't know if you can see that. I'll try to hold it up if anybody's interested in that particular program. Yep.
Steve, can you send a link or drop that into the chat?
Yeah, how do I do that? I'm sorry. How do I send it to the chat?
There should be a chat button on your screen in the lower right. You may have to move your mouse around to.
Okay, the problem is I have it I have a photo on my phone and I'm on my computer for the chat. I don't know if I can link the two together. I can try to do that though.
Why don't you work on that tech challenge? I don't want to stop the meeting for it though.
Oh,
so
no, don't.
We'll come back to it if we get that information.
Okay.
I wanted to ask Linda a couple questions about the two projects you introduced. And I know there was quite a bit more information in the email that you sent around, and these questions may have been answered in there, so I apologize if I'm
go ahead. Yep.
repeating. But on the lighting and wayfinding project, two questions. One is this intended to be, what's the right word for it? A display that remains the same once it's
No.
installed, or is this something that can be programmed for different occasions and that type of thing?
Yeah, so just to give you sort of a little bit of an idea about how it could go. For instance, here we come up with cider days and Halloween. You could do orange lighting coming in with the, depending on how you want to do this. There could be some permanence to the light against the stones that says, this way to restaurants, this way to venues, if you want. That could be variable in terms of color, but also the roping is programmable. And as my understanding is you actually can program it ahead so that you can set a date of when you want the lights to change. For instance, when we get to Hanukkah, it could be blue and white. When we get to whatever Christmas. It could be a green and red. Yeah, no, it's changeable. That's the charm of it.
The message as well as just the colors, like
Yeah.
could the
The
thing that just
message would have to need, it would need a new, but this is possible. The message would need a new, we don't call it a stencil in the theater. It's called a gobo. But anyway, a new stencil would be required to change the message, but that would be doable and not altogether hard. But it's not as easy as pushing a button and saying a date that we want Hanukkah to be blue and white, right?
Okay, great. That's
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to understand. And the other question related to that, you indicated that the total project budget was likely to be in the vicinity of 15,000 or so.
Correct. The old estimate from September of 2018 was was $12,000, which was the grant that Bill and MJ had told me to research. So that was what we built it around. Now that said, you know, that was the number that we built this around at that time. There will be about a 10% increase in cost because of the time that's gone by. But that said, too, there would be more expensive versions of this and less expensive versions of this should you want that. This was just what was built around the grant that MJ and Bill told me to do the project about.
Okay, great. And just a couple more quick ones on that. If the committee was to give some portion of the budget towards that, obviously we don't have enough to fund the whole thing, and you
Right.
did express confidence that the rest could be raised.
I don't think it would be hard. Yeah.
Just as say a hypothetical, if we were to donate to set aside say $5,000 worth of the annual grant, you'd be looking to raise about 10 or so. Generally, at least in broad brush terms, where would you be looking to get that funding? That you know,
Do
what would
I have to do it, Rachel? I'm sick of doing it. All right.
well,
So what
where
I
would
would
it come
say is-
from? Let me rephrase that. What would be the primary additional
Yeah,
sources of
well,
funding to complete the
I really
project?
do think that a super simple GoFundMe would go pretty far. I bet we'd make about $5,000 in a GoFundMe. And then I think going directly to people like John Howland and, you know, and the banks to get $1,000 or a couple grand from each of them. I don't think it would honestly would be that hard. And truthfully, I would help do that. Of course I would, you know. Yeah.
Cool.
Are
Caitlin.
we allowed to do a GoFundMe? That might be.
Excellent question. That's an interesting
I'm
question.
not sure we
Well-
can, but if we end up not being, you know, if we change the way things are funded, maybe that would open up. But as a city entity, I'm not sure we are allowed. Do you have any idea, MJ?
I know that they were working with Patronicity a couple of years ago, and there was that encouragement that there would be local crowdfunding to show support of some of
Yeah,
the.
they created the platform,
But
but you know what? That's all over though, MJ. That's all done. So
I know, but I mean, the concept is the same, where there's like local crowdfunding that shows some level of community support
Right.
for the thing that you're proposing. So let's take a look at that.
Okay.
I can't answer that specifically, but you know, it seems like there was some iteration of it that was allowed when they were doing that process.
Okay, so I'll check into it.
cool.
And I also I think you know I always feel like I'm looking for the Kobayashi Maru answer, but I don't know that the city has to be the one doing the GoFundMe, right? The artist or whoever's
Yeah,
managing
maybe,
that
yeah.
project
Yeah.
could actually run the GoFundMe and get the rest of the funding themselves.
Right.
Much like Christy
like you're
found
thinking,
other
Kurt.
sources to finish Winter Carnival when we gave her $500.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Those were the questions I had on that one.
And it looks like Ellie's got a question too, Rach.
Oh, thank you.
Christy does as well.
All right.
Sorry, I didn't see your
She has
face.
been raising her hand for a long time here, so that's why I just put it in the chat. If we're on Linda's, can I just ask some questions, Rachel, on Linda's?
Let's
wayfinding
let's
one?
do it that way. Ellie, I'll come to you next. Thank you for understanding. Go ahead, Christy.
So Linda, I think this is a great project. I know that we always talked about putting a mural down here before. I have a question. Have you followed up at all with the railroad?
This is the thing. There was communication with the railroad that Billy did, or MJ doesn't remember this, so I don't think MJ had anything to do with the railroad conversation. But there was a conversation, and it went like this: you may not paint on our tunnel, you know, forget about it. But we were like, no, it's light that's going on the tunnel, and they were like, interesting, not really a thing that we've thought about before. And so it seemed like it was going to be able to go through, but there would be work on following up with that, of course. And I didn't do it personally, but I think it must have been, don't you think, MJ, it must have been Bill that made the phone call to figure that out, or somebody
No, I
else?
actually think it might have been Maureen if she was still on staff, because I remember her.
Oh, yeah, she
Well,
was, I
I'll put a
think.
call into Maureen and pick her brain. She's down in Amherst nowadays, but
Okay.
I'll put a call into her.
But the response is, though, Christy, just super blunt. That is true. It's not shovel ready in that regard. There would need to be some communication with the railroad, and it could, fork it up. It could be the end of it. But I don't know the answer to that.
And Rachel, can I follow up?
Please do. And then I've got Ellie, and then Caitlin, and then Steve Goldshire.
So I think it's a really cool project. At first, I honestly thought it was a projector, so I thought we could program the changes. I didn't realize it was a stencil. And then, so would there be multiple LEDs so that you could have?
So let me just describe it to you so you'll get it. So imagine, here we go. You're going under the bridge. Here we go. And you're going to have, like, I forget what the number is, but it's like half a dozen or 10 of these rope lights, like you've seen them at Walmart, right? But they're a little bit more sophisticated because they're programmable. And then and they go all the way across. They illuminate the underneath of the tunnel in a sort of stripe way, right? Going all the way across. And then there was this idea of having what we call an instrument, like a light bulb, right? An LED light bulb that shoots light against the tunnel wall to say restaurants, arrow up the hill, Museum of our Industrial Heritage down the hill, whatever you want. But that was the idea, to have it be wayfinding. But it actually doesn't have to be wayfinding at all. That would be a way to save money, is if it's just the colorful lights, that, it could be as simple as that. And they're programmable. So think of them as LED ropes, Christy, right? Going all the way across underneath.
Well, that's why I'm confused, because your picture here with the that you sent
wayfinding, yeah, because that was what the grant was back in the day. The grant was essentially signage to get you from point A to point B, but we're not really talking about that anymore. We're talking about something that would just be an exciting way to come into Greenfield, or it could be the wayfinding if that was desired. I just tried to find some examples for Billy to understand, because he was a little confused about what I was sharing with them.
So I guess I'm more confused now, because I was picturing this spotlight with a stencil. Now, when you talk about rope lights, to me is what I use on my stage, which is just bright colored lights in plastic.
Yep, except these are programmable, so you can make them any color that you want.
Okay.
So this is an old project that I was asked to put together. The project I was asked to put together was wayfinding, right? How do we get to restaurants? How do we get to the Museum of our Industrial Heritage? That doesn't seem to be so much a desire now. Maybe it is. I don't know. I'm just saying what's possible, and what we put together in that proposal, in that estimate. In the estimate.
Okay, I'll let others ask questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Ellie, I have you next in queue.
Thank you. Linda, my husband and Max and I walked down there a couple days ago and looked around. And do you imagine that this lighting is more for pedestrians or more for vehicular traffic?
I would say it's for anybody going through the tunnel. Drivers will experience the colorful lights, but in addition, it will provide a sense of pleasure and joy for pedestrians walking down, and will take away the gloom of what that tunnel, what that underpass is, just to make it more pleasant to pass under, because as you know, it's like really creepy down there.
It's not a very nice entrance to the city. I'll definitely say that. Caitlin, I had you next in the list.
I'm sorry, just a little, just a follow-up.
Hold on one second, Caitlin. Did you want to follow up, Ellie?
Yes, I did. I think, well, I'm not the most confident driver in the world, but if I was trying to go through that tunnel and I saw a lot of signage, I would find it distracting.
Fair enough.
So my vote would be more for definitely like bright and colorful lighting rather than signage.
Great.
For
Yeah.
that reason, but that's
No,
me.
that seems like a very reasonable response to it all. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, truthfully, I think I might be with you on that, even though I've proposed something a little bit different. Yeah. It was just that that was what the request to me was at that time. Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Caitlin.
Just a really quick thing. I think maybe the Pan Am is no longer in control of the tunnel, so we may have to research
Oh.
who actually is in
Pan
charge
Am
of
at the
the tunnel.
time. I do know that. I know
Yeah.
that was who the communication happened with. Who is it now, Caitlin? Do you even know?
We're gonna have to check in. Is it DOT? You're muted, MJ. She thinks it's the DOT. Yeah.
DOT?
And
Oh, that's
secondly,
kind of good.
I still vote for wayfinding.
Okay.
Wayfinding's
Yeah.
great.
Whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, I had kind of dug the wayfinding concept too, but I was under the assumption that it could be reprogrammed like a projector so that, on cider days it could change to saying cider days this way and, serve to highlight events and things.
Well,
But
the thing is, Rach, that is very doable. That would just be a different estimate. And the thing
Yeah.
is that Matthew can get that done. And that, I'm not even saying that like the project that I threw out there is actually the correct one for us. Like we can make it whatever we want. Matthew's brilliant. He can do anything. Sorry, I just saw a chat from Steve. No, like we can alter it. It doesn't have to be what I threw out there. I just threw out there the old thing from back in the day. It can be anything, we can change it to be what you want.
great. Thank you. And thank you, Steve, for getting that information into the chat for us.
Yeah, I'm primitive here, but I hope that's helpful.
You're doing fine. It's got some good stuff there. You had raised your hand to speak,
Yeah,
so
I
I'll
did. I had a
let you go
question.
ahead and hold my questions.
The idea of lighting, I remember coming back from Denver and they have a whole canopy of lighting on their streets, absolutely gorgeous. And I think I pitched this 4 or 5 years ago, and that's a massive project, but I like the idea of lighting. I think it attracts people, makes downtown more vibrant. I think of Pulaski Park in Northampton all lit
Yeah.
up. Could we take the idea of lighting and just maybe bring it to another location in town besides the underpass? Are there other locations where this might be suitable to do outdoor lighting?
Where are you thinking of, Steve? What do you want to do?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I could throw out a few ideas, but over by Mesa Beach, I think people call it Mesa Beach now. Is that area where they're building a sort of like a pocket park? Lighting could be done there. I see hands.
I've got hands everywhere.
I think we're all going to say the same thing.
We're working
All
on
right, two
that.
other places.
It's already going in.
Court
Lighting
Square.
is already going in there.
Oh, all right, Court Square. Something happening in Court Square. Some of the potentially alleyways that are being, looked at.
These are great ideas, Steve, but I think what we need is a shovel-ready project rather than, an idea,
Yeah, well, I'm thinking taking what you have, just maybe a different location.
Well,
If-
let me.
Well, if you want to
Especially
propose that,
consider-
Steve, go right ahead.
I'm just going to chime in and say that, a lot of these,
That's what I just
a
did.
lot of the bigger ideas, Steve, like expanding that to more of downtown, sometimes get a lot easier once you've had a sort of pilot project, so to speak. So, like the bees, we struggled to sell the first 6, and now people are coming to me now that they see what it is and they want one. So cool lights on the underpass is something fairly straightforward and achievable that might serve as a launch pad to allow us to tackle more ambitious projects like putting them over Main Street or something.
Yeah.
Steve
I
Hussey.
have to say that I didn't understand that it was the drive-through. I thought it was the walkway tunnel up into the energy park. I didn't realize we were talking about the drive-through
Oh,
until it was
I beg your pardon.
clarified.
I probably should have been more clear on that, Steve. Good
It's
point.
okay, but
Good
so now I'm echoing some of the other sentiment that it could be distracting for people driving through there, colored lights and so forth. And I I'm a little concerned about that. That's why I said maybe we could do it, but in a different location.
Steve Hussey. And then
Yeah,
Caitlin.
I just want to mention that is the dimmest. Oh, I'm sorry.
Pardon me, Steve. Sorry to interrupt. Caitlin is just letting us know that she's heading out.
Bye,
Okay.
Caitlin.
Bye,
So-
Caitlin.
Bye, Caitlin.
All right. My apologies, Steve. Please continue.
No problem. That is the grimmest part of Greenfield, that underpass. I think it's a great idea to do that kind of thing there. The one concern I have is knowing how gritty it is. I wonder how frequently the lights might have to be. I don't know how easy it would be to access them once they're up, and whether they would need, maybe if they're downward facing, maybe they wouldn't get dirty. But I don't know if you've been through there, but there's just a constant, both from the tracks and from the road, there's just constant grit. So
That's
that, I mean,
excellent
I don't
point.
think that this is a deal killer at all. It's just something to consider.
Well, I'm thinking it through. That's really a good point, Steve. So to respond to it, since it's this ropey stuff that's wrapped in plastic, there may be a thing like once a year we've got to just
Wipe them
wipe
off.
them down or something. That's a good point.
Wait.
I've never thought. Yeah, exactly. I've never thought about that.
Lights
But
off.
it's wicked grimy in there.
Oh, it is. It's terrible. Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
what to say.
You're always accelerating as you go up the hill there, and
Yeah.
Yeah,
especially
exactly.
big trucks with the diesels and stuff. There, those fumes are going
Could
to
be a thing. It could be
create
a
a
thing.
sticky film for the dust to cling to, so it's going to get good and dirty. Yeah, it's a good point. Something to be thought about on that
But I'm
project.
not a deal killer. I don't raise that as a deal killer. I just say it is a
Okay.
consideration, but it is. It's a grim. I mean, I've walked through it, and it's grim, and it's irredeemable as it is. Something needs to be done.
Well, and I want to add to that, and then I'm going to call Christy. I got you next. I looked into the different entrances to the city and what we could do with them as part of where I was trying to place bees.
Oh, yeah,
And
right.
all of them are virtually untouchable because they're all state property.
Ah.
So there's like a big grassy corner where High Street meets Route 2 up there. It's not High Street anymore, I guess, at that point. It's changed names. And I thought that's a perfect spot, right at the entrance to the city, big grassy area, not going to be a problem, but that's state land. And the approval process to put something on there was a nightmare. Then I thought, well, let me get one down by the traffic circle coming off the highway. There's that little triangular grassy median. And, I actually talked to Mass DOT because that one, again, their property. And, they wanted to know, like, is it going to attract bees that might sting the workers that have to mow the lawn there? And,
Oh my God, that's awesome.
so I have to say that this may be one of very few, or perhaps the only opportunity we have to beautify any of the entrances to Greenfield. And echoing what you just said, Steve, that it's also the ugliest of them by far and could most use the help. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about the project. It does seem like there's some details to work out, but hopefully, we might be able to put some money to it and structure it in such a way that those details can be worked out on the fly by the artists and crafters that are going to do it. Let's see.
Christy had a thing, honey.
Oh,
Christy had
thank
a
you.
thing.
Thank you for reminding me. Christy, I had you in queue, please.
Yeah, thank you. I was just gonna switch gears to take us away from the grimy underpass and go to the murals. I actually met with Gabe Zacchio and gave him a whole bunch of locations that we had worked on many years ago and connected him with artists for future projects. And I love that the idea of the Conti building, as Linda said, we had worked with an artist, but it had fallen through. I also certainly would support Steve, although he didn't really have a lot of numbers to back up his mural over at Hawks and Reed. What Gabe Zacchio is really trying to do is to create multiple murals, and then he has his own website and a walking path to all these murals. So I think that's a great project because he is a youth in our community who loves art himself and has clearly, I think it's 3 murals now he's done. So he has some experience, and I just think it's great to have youth involvement in the public art. So I certainly would advocate for putting some sort of money towards those projects to help him as well. Assuming that, would you say it was Karen Conti, I think, Linda, would
Yeah.
support that. Right now, that the Conti building is tagged. Hopefully, Steve, your building is not, but it's tagged a lot in the back. And I just think it would look really great as well. Clearly, we only have $7,500 and we can't fund them all. Obviously, selfishly, I definitely want money for downtown Winter Carnival, so I'll put that little plug in there. But I think it's great projects, but I think we need to make some decisions.
And
Yeah,
I want to throw
I'm
one
gonna
thing.
pause.
If
I'm
I
gonna
could
pause.
respond to Christy, is that okay, Rach?
Let me take you in queue. I
Yeah.
want to pause for a bit of housekeeping. I want to point out that we had originally scheduled the meeting to go until 7:30, and it is 7:20. And if we're going to end at that time, we need to move towards a decision fairly quickly here. So I kind of wanted to get a sense of the room and see if people are willing to work later or if we need to kind of move ourselves to a decision. Who is able to stay longer? Let's just put it that way. I can certainly stay. I see Linda can, Ellie can. Christy, where are you at?
I can, but I think that right now we have the WebEx ending at 7:30, so that could
So
be
we're just going to get cut off. Okay.
We're gonna get cut off.
Then
Okay.
that's a moot
Damn.
point. So, um,
So let's
in
vote.
that case, it's 7:20, and we really kind of need to move to motions and voting. So let me just ask one or two more quick questions to clarify. Actually, really one. I think I've got everything else. Steve Goldshire, you mentioned the mosaic by the Pushkin as a possible target. When will that project be complete? Do you know? Because that's part of the timing of this all as well. Does that seem like that's going to be done by June?
June of next year?
Yeah.
June, oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Great.
That'll be done by June. Yeah.
All right. Let's see. How are we going to move this forward to a decision? We could go with a series. Well, wait a minute. Let me just make sure we still sit in quorum here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, we do. Okay, excellent. So we can make the decisions tonight. I guess one way we could do it would be, anyone who wants to can make a motion for, how they see the money being split up. And then we can see if that motion has support. And if not, we can try another one. We might be able to move through it pretty quickly that way, unless anybody.
Rach, should I recuse from voting on my own projects? I think that's the correct thing. I think I will do that.
Well, let's clarify. Do you stand to take financial gain from any of them or any
Oh,
organizations
Jesus,
that
no. Oh my
you
God.
own?
No, I don't.
I mean,
Okay,
if we're
so I
not
can
paying, if you're not paying yourself, I don't think you need to recuse yourself. It's only if you have a financial interest in the project that
No.
we'd be concerned about the conflict.
Okay.
So is in terms of facilitation, does anybody see a better way to move us to a decision?
Well, I want to say that these are all good projects. There's nothing here that isn't good. I'm wondering if maybe some of these projects could be funded through other sources, like, for example, the mural projects. I'm wondering if we could, I mean, we have multiple locations. Are there other means that we could find for funding? I mean, really, and I don't mean to trivialize this, but $7,500 is not going to go that far for multiple murals. Are there other sources?
Actually, I can
MJ?
respond to that, Steve. And I actually have a really good gift that I just threw at Gabe. There is the New England Foundation for the Arts has a big grant for spatial justice, which I just shared with Gabe, and it could be funded in another way, which is the thing I wanted to tell. I wanted to tell Christy. So you know what? Yes. So maybe I should pull the mural project because I think it can get done in another way.
Well, I'm thinking maybe we should, as the Cultural Council, should support these murals, multiple locations, but figure out another way we could get funding.
We can't actually, Steve, because
We can't?
we can only fund projects in the cultural district. So we can't spread them around the city. We could do 2 or 3 in the cultural district, but we can't fund anything that's at the intersection of federal and and Silver Street or something like that, because it's not in the
No, no, no,
district.
but we're talking about the Conti building, my building. I saw that report that came out by Fine Point, and they showed a mural on the whole front of the TD Bank building. These are all in the cultural district, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely, and they're all viable targets. And I agree. I agree with what you said. I think they're all good projects. So I'm both struggling in my mind how to prioritize them, and then struggling as your facilitator and thinking about how to hold this vote so that we can come to consensus on it. Christy, do you have a suggestion?
I do. I have another train because I live by the train tracks. But I was just throwing numbers down just to start the conversation. Can I just throw out some numbers?
Please do.
So I think that yes, that the murals can get financial support elsewhere, but I agree with Steve that I would like to support that as part of the award. So I would suggest that we give $1,000 to the mural at Hawks and Reed, and $2,000 to the mural on the Conti building because it's significantly larger space. These are just to start the conversation. I also really like the mosaic that was started and didn't get completed at the Pushkin. So I was just putting down $1,000 to help with the cost with the tile work over there. The Energy Park, well, not really, the Energy Park tunnel entrance, I think that's really cool. I think we need to work out a few logistics. I just put a number of 2,500 there. I think that it's definitely not enough, but I think Linda is very resourceful and has a lot of contacts and ways to raise money that we all wish we could do as well as she does. And last but not least, obviously Winter Carnival is near and dear to my heart. I would love to take it all, but that would be very selfish. So I just put down 1,000 there. So that equals 7,500 if I did my math correct. So again, those are just numbers that gives money to almost all of them. I think the tree thing is really cool, but I think we need more details. And I really appreciate Jeremy wanting to do some art stuff at the skate park. I support that as well, but I just think we're too soon there. So those are just numbers for discussion.
Great, thank you. That's exactly the kind of starting point we needed. I agree with your assessment on the skate park. I think in next year's grant, that's going to look great. But right now, there's nothing to put art on. I think it's just premature.
No.
So I think we cross that one for the moment. I also agree about Hidden Life Radio. This sounds fantastic, but I don't feel like we have the information yet with how many shows, how many bands, how much do we pay the bands? Do we have to rent the tech? I don't know enough about cost or dates to make that decision, but I would like to follow up on it. I will also echo Christie's comments about both the mosaic by the Pushkin and the various mural projects. But I want to add a caution that we not spread the money so thin that none of the projects can get completed.
Yeah, I worry about that, Rach. I mean, it means that none of them will really happen.
Right. So the breakdown that Christy gave, I like the priorities in terms of where the money's going. But from a practical sense, I think we're better off not breaking it into quite so many, maybe picking the top 2 or at most 3 so that we can get a big enough chunk to make sure each one's got a fair chance of success.
You have 120 seconds to do it, Rach. Are we really going to get cut off?
You're muted, Christy.
We may not, because after I said that, I remember running late once and another meeting couldn't start. So let's hope we're going to be good here.
If somebody else has a meeting, we may. Steve Hussey.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there is grants out there specifically that might cover the murals. I'm wondering if we should then move the money to both the tunnel and the Winter Carnival. And
that's what I would do, Steve. I think that's actually, I would vote for that as an idea. Go with Winter Carnival. It's so important, 100 years. And I think that lighting, I'm sorry that I'm the guy that proposed it, but I think it's a really great idea. And I think there's other money for murals, y'all. I really do. I mean, I know there is.
There's placemaking money that I think easily applies to murals that doesn't.
A grant, which is called Spatial Justice. It's $7,500, which would cover the Conti building. And yeah.
So I tend to agree with Linda. Let me propose an alternate breakdown, building
Okay,
on what
here we go.
Christy started. What
Mhm.
if we did 5,000 for the lighting project, which I
Mhm.
feel like even if it's not enough, it's a good down payment and makes a reasonable
start,
chance of
yeah.
success.
Mhm.
And then I agree, 1,000 for the Winter Carnival sounds good to me.
Really good.
And then we have 1,000 left to contribute to the completion of the mosaic project on the Pushkin.
Right. Which can I
That's
just say that was an egg tooth project that came out of our arts generator several years ago, and it makes me so happy that it happened. That was when Amy Timmons met Bob Markey.
Oh,
Just
how about
saying.
that? That's awesome.
So, Rach, did you say 5, 1, and 1? So we still have 500 left.
Yeah, we
Oh,
saw.
there you go. Yeah.
So,
Great.
Oh, well, then in that
What
case,
the hell was your math, Rach?
I turned off my math brain a long time ago. So how about 5 for the tunnel, 1,500 for Winter Carnival, because I think that's an important priority, and I'd love to see it go
Yep.
bigger. And then the same 1,000 for the mosaic.
Super.
I
Um,
would vote for that right now.
I would
uh,
too.
I would too.
And we didn't get cut off at 7:30.
I know, right? It's 7:30. Steve, will that be, I'm assuming will be helpful, Steve, Gulcher, helpful enough to get whatever supplies?
Yeah, I think Bob Markey would be appreciative. I brought him in to do a mosaic project. We met and talked about doing it, and he does this all over the world. When he partnered in with the recovery project, to get people that are in recovery coming and actually doing the work, it garnered a lot of publicity, and I know they do have funding through the jail. So anything extra is going to help. I think they would appreciate it. So I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Great. I'm gonna make a motion here in a second so that we can make this all official because we're all basically nodding in agreement. But I have one last question for Steve. Since you brought up the mosaic project, we're going to need a breakdown of what that $1,000 is going to be used for, and then some way at the end to take a picture or whatever and establish that it was done. Is that going to be a challenge to produce within the next
At all.
couple of days?
No problem. We can send you pictures. It's ongoing now.
And we're going to need the budget breakdown.
Budget.
Yeah.
And to be clear, what we would need is the total budget and with our line item in it showing the rest of the funds, because that's what the application takes.
Yeah, it already exists. We could
Okay.
just give you a copy of it. That's not a
Great.
problem.
Okay, so wonderful. Then I'm going to put forth the motion that we apply for our annual grants in the amount of $5,000 for lighting at the train bridge at the bottom of Bank Row, in the amount of $1,500 for the Winter Carnival being administered by our rec department, and in the amount of $1,000 to contribute to the completion of the Pushkin mosaic.
Second.
Seconded for the record by Steve Hussey. Any further discussion on the matter? We're going to vote by roll call for the record.
One
oh.
thing. So, okay, I'm in favor of I'm not in favor of the lighting of the tunnel, but I'm in favor of the other two projects. Is this a package deal? You have to vote for everything?
Well, that's the way I had envisioned it at this moment. Would you like to put forth an alternate package and see?
Well,
if
that's
we've
the
got a
motion that's on the table that has been first and seconded.
Yeah.
We do have a motion on the table, so I guess Robert's rules would have us vote on that proposal.
Right.
And if it fails,
it
then make an
dies.
alternate one.
Right.
Although in the spirit of congeniality, I'm willing to make a friendly amendment to pull the proposal if you want to make an alternate. I'm not trying to railroad
alternate,
anything
Steve.
through. What would your alternate be if the proposal was pulled? That's on
I
the
just
table.
think that from the discussion about the lighting project, there were a number of issues brought up. I'm not sure that we should commit to it until we have more information.
Okay.
I'm concerned about some of the things that were just mentioned.
I see you, Gretchen.
But if it's,
Well, what would be an alternate proposed breakdown? Because we have to vote on something tonight.
well, if we hold off on doing the lighting project right now, I guess I would say, let's give more of the money to the Winter Carnival. And I'm fine if we stay at the same amount for the mosaic. You- um, It was, it was 5,000, 1,000, and 1,500, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I would propose that we up the amount for the Winter Carnival to 6,000 and maybe do 1,500 to the mosaic. If we hold off on doing the lighting project for now until we have more information and know how all those details would work out. One was mentioned about who has jurisdiction over the tunnel. You have to talk to maybe a train company. Also, some mention about the effect of the lights in the tunnel. I mean, is there any way we can sort of do a trial run? Also, I understand we already own these lights. They've been purchased. Linda, is that
They
correct?
have not.
They
That's
have not.
incorrect.
Oh, okay. I thought I read in the proposal that the lights had already been purchased. They haven't been.
That is
Okay.
incorrect.
Okay. So, yeah, I guess that would be a counter that I would throw out if you're asking me to do that.
Okay. So let me just summarize what Steve said. So if the alternate proposal that Steve has put forth is $6,000 for Winter Carnival, $1,500 for the mosaic by the Pushkin, and continue research on the tunnel project and potentially bring it back for next year or for a different grant source. At this point, I think parliamentary procedure, the way we would have to do that is if people like that idea, simply vote no on the motion that's on the table, and then we'll have another motion to
That's
follow.
correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
That's Robert's rules. Yeah.
Great. So seeing no further discussion on the proposal on the table, were you voting, Christy, or discussing?
No, I was gonna say that, I don't remember who made I think Steve Hussey seconded it. You made the motion. So you
Correct.
could actually withdraw the motion and then Steve Goldshare can have his motion on the table. So we don't have to vote it down. You can just withdraw the first motion with Robert's rules. Just, you know.
Could happen, but why don't we just move forward and just see who
Yeah,
responds for it?
I mean, rather than just going around and asking everybody which they want and then having a ceremony vote, this is our way of asking what everybody wants. So if you like Steve's alternate proposal better, simply vote no on this one. It doesn't have any meaning beyond that.
Great.
And we do need to vote by roll call because that's what the city needs. So Rachel Katz voting yay on the proposal on the table. Linda McInerney.
I'm voting yay on the proposal on the table.
Thank you. Christy Moore. You're
Do-
muted.
Mute,
Oh.
sweetie, mute.
Yes. If I don't vote, do we still have quorum?
You can abstain. You don't have
Yeah,
to.
I'm gonna abstain because it's Winter Carnival.
Okay, that's certainly your choice. And just to be clear, the rule on quorum is about attendance, not on voting. You don't have to vote on any matters to be counted towards quorum. You just have to be in attendance. Ellie.
I vote
Mandel,
yay.
Ellie Mandic.
Sorry, I vote yay on the proposal on the table.
Thank you very much. Steve Golcher.
I vote nay on the proposal on the table.
Thank you. And Steve Hussey.
Yay on the motion on the table.
Thank you. And the final vote count then is 4 in favor, 1 against, and 1 abstaining. So the motion carries. We have our grant priorities. And the final piece to this that I need before we go is who wants to help me write this grant?
I'll do it.
This is me asking. I am asking, Steve. I see Ellie's hand up and Linda's friendly grimace is up. That's 2. Was there anybody else who wanted to be involved in the drafting of it? Okay, I think the 3 of us should be able to handle that. We do have, I think, about 2 weeks to get this together, so I will reach out to both of you by email immediately after the meeting to set up a working time when we can do this.
Thank you for doing that. All 3 of you. Thank you.
No problem. I see no reason why we can't complete that by Zoom so that we can all participate safely and conveniently. Unless anybody has anything further for the meeting, I'm going to conclude by, oh, no, Christy has something. Excellent.
I just quickly want to say thank you. But I also wanted to say that tomorrow at the top of Fisk Ave is our Pocket Park. We're doing the ribbon cutting with Carol Collins and the AARP grant, where we installed the chess table, the benches. Rachel replaced and repaired our Celtic bee. And then we also have the bike pump and repair station that was also installed. So that's at 11:30 tomorrow up there. And that's where we'll have eventually some lighting, Steve G.
That's so great, Christy. And I want to say I had a show right there yesterday, an Egg Tooth crazy pop-up theatrical production. It's so beautiful with all the plants and everything. It's so beautiful with the little game table. And Rachel and I put the bee back in. I just love that bee so much. Rachel, oh my God. How can we ever thank you for the bee thing? Can we just go to that for a second? Rachel, bee thing is effing insane, and you're effing insane, and we love you for that.
Well, thank you. And the biggest joy and thanks I think that I've gotten from the whole thing was seeing the fair parade go bee theme without any of the bee people who've been involved in it to date actually pushing that. That just kind of grew organically. So I love the buy-in.
Bee's knees, Papa. The bee's knees.
Thank you. And Christy, thanks for remembering to bring that up. I wanted to mention it earlier, but I forgot all about it.
And by the way, Christy, your work is ridiculous. Can everybody just know that? Like you're insane. I'm sorry that you are, and I'm grateful that you are. It is what it is.
Thank you.
That is true.
And I will say that the benches around the bee make for just a delightful area to sit and eat your lunch. So even if you don't make the event tomorrow, go down there and test out the benches. Give them a good sit. It's a nice.
You mean we won't get stung, will we, Rachel?
Oh, no, you're good. You're good.
It's okay. I'm sculpting
Well,
giant
if the DOT is worried about it, maybe I should worry.
It's great. I'm in the process of sculpting a 4-foot-high EpiPen that'll take care of it.
I'll bring mine.
Hilarious. Oh my God. A 4-foot-high EpiPen. This needs to happen.
Oh, that'd be great.
They might need to, I don't know. My company might need to do that.
I'm going to extend a general thanks to the committee for the fine work tonight. Some very good cooperative discussion and bouncing back and forth. Thank you to our municipal employees, MJ and Christy, for all of the work that you do to support everything we do. Absolutely. And thank you to our new member, Ellie. Thank you for joining the committee and helping us work. And Gretchen, thank you for joining us for the meeting and sharing your expertise and input on several topics. Unless anybody has anything further to say, we stand adjourned, and I will bid you all a good night, and we'll see you in October on the 19th. Thanks, friends.
Good. Good night.
Good night.